Well, thank you very much for that, Karen. That's much appreciated. And I do have to say a shout out to Lanny, who introduced me actually on last week's show as well. That was very kind of him. Obviously, Lanny, he runs Cave Camp out in Mexico, Underworld Tulum, every year, and I've been going there ever since he first started that venture. And we have a fantastic time. It's a great place for any diver to be going to learn, or even just to just enjoy the caves over there. It's really, really nice. So yeah, big shout out to Lanny. And I'm actually going to plug a couple of books later on by Stratis and Gareth Locke, who Gareth is going to be doing a presentation with you next week.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah, cool. Both books I've actually contributed to in terms of the kind of things that go wrong on dives.
Now your mic isn't on mute. Won't you mute that, please?
Cool. I think you can do that actually as well. You can mute everyone's mics if you want.
So many screens open over here.
Yeah, I can imagine. Right, so I've got to get myself sorted out now. So I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of myself in terms of where I am and how I've actually got to where I am in terms of what we're all doing. So before I started diving, I was typically like a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So bit of snowboarding, racing bikes, getting a bike and just throwing it off rocks and anything, and terracing down some single track route, black route, gnarling up round all sorts of things, and just generally just getting myself hurt, and but enjoying it. Can't believe I've hurt myself more on a mountain bike than I ever have on a motorbike. So yeah, but that kind of all sort of stopped a little bit in this going from one extreme to the other, where everything was just adrenaline related, to going to diving. And initially at diving, I didn't think that diving would be quite so surreal as I found it to be later on in life. So yeah, there aren't actually many pictures of me in my early days of diving, but I'm sure somebody's got some somewhere. But my laptop got stolen about 5 years ago, and the hard drives as well. So any photos I had actually were on that. So unfortunately, I'm struggling to find any. So if anyone has any, just for a laugh, and you want to send them over, just send them over, and I'll post them. But here's one that was taken a while back, and in my early diving, single tank, dry suit, and all we did was just go out looking for places to dive, other than going to quarries. And that would involve one of my favourite sites here, which is quite a big site, and you can go in many areas of the shore and just jump in and find yourself looking at gnome gardens, or looking at huge rock structures, big drop-offs, or there's not a lot of fish life in there, but it was still a very pleasant place to dive, especially in the summer. And some of my mates would turn up on their bikes and just say, "Oh, what are you doing?" Stop, and we'd have a barbecue, and yeah, it was lovely. Also got my way into tech diving as well, and joined my friends, and off we went. Usually same place. It was a nice, big, deep place to go and dive. It's Wastwater's the deepest lake in England. And it's right next in the distance, in the background there is actually the tallest mountain in England. So it's quite a novel place to dive. And in the summer, on a beautiful nights. You have no light around you and you can see the stars and the Milky Way, and it's just beautiful. So getting into diving like that, I started to look at diving a little bit more in terms of how can I make this better, because I didn't feel very good. And by accident, a photograph was just taken here. I know it looked staged, but it really wasn't. We were all approaching side by side, swimming along. I'm on the left, and yeah, it just showed to me how different diving can be for people. And then one day I became an instructor. I actually didn't, look at that fat face. I did not want to be an instructor. Dive master was about the only thing I felt was relevant, but and all I needed to do. But I did actually go down the route of being that instructor. I remember pulling my hair out that day, and that's why I've not got so much anymore. But I was with 3 of my friends, and we dived. We often dived wasp water together. David in this third from the right, he went off to Spain. He was a fighter pilot, test pilot for the RAF. Yeah, so that was really where it all kind of started for me. My previous diving was all just recreational, enjoyed it, went diving all the time. I was trying to improve myself, improve my equipment. I was swapping things around, not dissimilar to what I'm doing already, to be honest. But it's good, and everything I did hopefully made a difference. Not always an improvement. Sometimes whatever change I made to my kit didn't always improve things. So it was about finding out, just doing little adjustments at a time. And I kind of learned that from my racing days, because with motorbikes, if you wanted to go around the corner fast, you made one adjustment to one suspension setting, not lots. Because if you did lots, you didn't know what you did right or wrong, because you've got different areas of the bike that you can alter. So in the same with diving, really, you can't just sort of change weights, change buoyancy, change fins, change boots. You just mix it up so much you don't know where you're coming and going. So I made a lot of changes to things very gradually and worked out what helped and what didn't. And from my teaching side of things, that's where it really progressed, that I was going to make a difference and help people out. And not just for side mount either, it was also for back mount as well. And I got the name, Sidemount Bob. I also got another nickname, which was Back Mount Billy. So whenever somebody saw me in a twin set, I was Back Mount Billy, or a single tank on my back. And the rest of the time it was Sidemount Bob. And also, I have to put this down to Dean Martin. He was working at Apex at the time. He's working for Aqualung in America now. And he took a photograph of me with, and this day, I have to say, this is not particularly how I was diving at the time, but I had so much equipment of my own that I'd lent to my students whilst I was teaching on this particular day, that I only had left some spare sets of things that kind of would have done the job. And I set it up not realizing we were going to go for a photo shoot or anything. And we weren't. We were just going to go for a dive afterwards. So my students are behind me after having done their course, who are not open water students, obviously side mounters. And they were behind, and I think somebody had a light and they were shining a light behind. And it's a purely accidental photograph, but it ended up getting published in every magazine that I think we were aware of, under Apex for their side mount set, and hence I got a little bit of fame for that, which I'm very gracious and thankful to Dean Martin for. The photo did change to a more fitting one, which I was wearing all Apex and Aqualung gear. So, diving for me is about experiences, absorbing different cultures, lots of different environments, making friends along the way, and protecting what's vulnerable underwater, because it's down to us to do that. Because people generally don't do it unless they know what's underwater and they have a healthy knowledge about the underwater aquatic life. Living the dream, as they say. Everyone's always jealous of my job. They don't really know what goes on behind, but all the time I'm finding out a bit more about myself and about my limits, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. So after doing all this, then I go out into the sea, then going out to sea anyway, but I go out to the sea and test things on boats, hard boats, bad conditions, good conditions, different types of access points in and out of the water, if it's climbing up a ladder or just you've got a lovely lift or you're climbing yourself onto a rib or into a rib. Then cave diving. So this is me doing some diving with some friends of mine. One of them here is Helen Farr. If any of you know her, she recently passed away. She's a lovely woman. She's my friend Jason. I can't for the life of me think of the other guy over here. But he was a fighter pilot and he was fit as hell, and he would run up and down the hills with the tanks, his tanks, and kind of leave everybody to their own thing, which is absolutely fine. But I remember on one occasion he was in the water 25 minutes before everybody else, and the water there is like 6 degrees. And when you're sitting there for 25 minutes in 6 degrees, not moving, waiting for everybody else to get in, there's a common problem there. And the problem was he wasn't being a team member. And as a team, in fact, on that day, Jason fell off a ledge and into a body of water, which was actually quite shallow. And he didn't hurt himself, but he did manage to get himself dried off and kitted back up, and we got in the water. But meanwhile, the fighter pilot was sitting there freezing himself, and he wasn't very happy. But debrief later just showed really what he could have done. And after that, he did a perfect job of helping Jason out, even myself, because he could run with our damn tanks everywhere. It's amazing. But he did have a little bit of a fright one day. His kit wasn't kind of up to the environment, and it kind of suffered a little bit when his runaway, he had a runaway inflator problem on his wing, and it got him trapped, and he didn't feel comfortable with that afterwards. So he, I'm not sure if he's even diving anymore now. But he was clearly good at what he was doing, but just made just little errors like we all can. And it's learning from the errors, which you will, if you get these books, one of them at least, they will highlight some of the errors that happen that we just didn't think could possibly happen, because we plan as divers to plan all these things out so that we don't get into those situations or they don't shock us too much. So after the cave course, which was it was a little bit like shutting the door before the horse is bolted kind of thing, but I did it properly on the books eventually, and then went out diving mines. This is actually a newer mine, or a mine that I dived last year in Belgium, but we didn't really have cameras so much then, and nobody I knew had cameras, so we didn't take any photos. But I'm using some photos from last year that I took. But also, you know, diving mines, we've got the river caves in the UK, which are also very interesting. They don't quite have the same in-water look, so you haven't got the crystal clear visibility. What you've got is more tannic, peaty water, brackish water, and it can put the whole dive in a different realm, because if you're used to diving in Mexico, where water visibility is just stunningly clear, that's great, but you have to be aware that you need to be able to dive in conditions when they aren't so clear, and they can get really bad. But that's what we're training for. But not just going out, just branching off into cave diving, I still did my sea dives, my local dives. I went with my friends, just all the time. And diving all the time really makes a difference to diving once or twice or 5 times a month. You know, if you can dive a lot, as much as you can, you'll feel it. So I've got a certain particular individual responsible for most of my deviances in diving since the 2012 or something. This young man, Paul Toomer, is the guy who's in the arrow there. So I did all my technical training with him. I also did my instructor training with him, and here I was in a teaching capacity on the course in a twin set and stages. And I hate the stages because they hang so low, and it's really not what I was about. But I was actually thinking I'm supposed to do my course in Sidemount. And he actually said when I arrived there that I wasn't going to do it in Sidemount, so I was going to do it all in a twin set after that. So I had to do a lot of last minute changes with kit that wasn't mine. But all the while you come back to what you know, and rather than just doing it in the sea where you've got other complications that can happen if you're trying to set things up, go back to where it's comfortable. Change things, modify things, practice skills. And the old saying is practice makes perfect. It never makes perfect, not in diving. There's far too many variables in diving. What you can do is practice the skill set to the point it's slick and it's permanent, because that way it doesn't matter if you get a surprise, you've got the equipment and capability to deal with things. And then we'd obviously go out to your quarry then and go out and do something really entertaining. So HMS Audacious and RMS just this year. 70-meter dives in Ireland, fantastic. You have to get out and do those at least once in your life. So exploring your own limits safely. The word safely is, we often take it quite for granted, but it's something that should be more impressed upon in our diving. We don't know what we don't know, and that little saying is it's often dismissed, because in reality, when you don't know what you don't know really hits you, it puts you in a panic. You don't want to be in a panic, but how do we find out these things? Again, going back to the books, you find out a lot there, because everybody's got something to talk about, and we live through it, and we can tell a tale about it, and that's really important. It's learning from people's mistakes. Be the best you can be. OCD, I'm kind of one of those people that only just recently admitted I've got OCD. You can be kind of too fixed and focused on things sometimes that makes you less observant to the team. You can be lured into a cave or deeper into a wreck and not realize what's going on, because your mindset is just hell-bent and fixed on this goal that you had in mind. So it's very important to know where the limits of not just yourself, but your team as well. Speaking of personal limits, one of those was to actually, and I know some of you guys are from South Africa, and you're very much in touch with your sharks. But for most people in the UK, most people don't even know this. I can't remember exactly, forgive me if I'm wrong on the number, but at least 50 different types of shark are around the British coastal waters. Now, could be wrong there, could be 30 or something, but it's a lot more than people think. And so I'm off in Plymouth here diving with some blue sharks. And it was a moment of intrepidation, setting foot in the water, knowing that there was a shark with big teeth. But actually having done it now and looking forward to getting in the water again, I don't want to do any cage dives or anything, but I really just want to be free with them. And that's very appealing to me. Another thing I wanted to find out, what was the chamber all about? I do never want to go in a chamber ever again. Absolutely not. That was, I'm good with my buoyancy in the water, and I can equalize and at a very nice, relaxing rate. I could not do it quickly enough in this chamber. It was a great experience, but one I don't want to repeat. But it is about finding out what you're capable of and what things you haven't done yet. Something else I wanted to do, which I did, was learn to freedive and learn aspects of freediving and what breath holding capabilities we have and the effects of narcosis and stress on the body and how we deal with that. And this was a picture taken going down to a wreck. It's only about 14 meters or something, but it was a very big eye opener to the way I dive. Later, several years later, because my ears are so hypersensitive, they really don't like just dropping down that first 2 meters. Once I descend in the water, it creates havoc with my sinuses after about 4 or 5 dives. But I did actually do a rescue on this day, and it was very enjoyable. All cold water as well. I think we spent about 4 hours in the water, and on this day it was about 12, but on the previous time, on the other photo when I was doing the course, I think it was about 8, and we did about 4 hours in the water. It was amazing. It was fun, but yeah, unbelievable. Finding out things about yourself. You find out where your hips are and where your chest bone is and your sternum and your collarbones. So this is a wooden cheese press, which the CDG often use for a bit of a laugh, just to see how tight things are, how tight they can get through things. That's the right way around. And quite surprisingly, one of my friends actually did this little test, and he's got a lot more meat on him than I have, and he managed to get through a narrower gap than I did, because where my bones are, there wasn't a lot of flesh on the outside of it. So it was quite interesting to note that when somebody is a lot bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't get through things, because they can. So what makes technical diving so addictive? Is it because you can stay under the water longer and see more cool stuff? Or is it about a challenge? Is it about safely exploring your own capabilities? Or is it just about some nice, shiny new kit and lots of it? Well, I actually picked up this t-shirt out of my drawer this morning, and I thought I really have to put this in the presentation. So it's the art of, I don't think this is real, but the art of vague assumptions based on debatable figures from quasi-reliable instrumentation, performed with the equipment of problematic accuracy by persons of doubtful reliability and questionable mentality. Yeah, well, you know what? If you could get 3 of those things right, you'd probably have a good dive. But when you get less than that, I think you're really into trouble. So open circuit, 6 cylinders. Most people would not really like to entertain it. It's not heroic or anything. But it just means I know what my capabilities are. I know I can dive it. There is an element of assurance that your kit is exactly something you can manage. And rebreathers definitely take a lot of the stress away. But at the same time, it comes with their other little nuances. But open circuit, yeah, this is Dorothea, 105 meters to the bottom, and next time I'm taking my rebreather. Just a camera, and it doesn't even have to be that big, but even a camera can add additional stress limits to a dive. So if you're out on a little excursion, say excursion, if you're out on an excursion and you're carrying a camera, you've just taken at least one of your hands away. It has to hold it. Be clipping it off, you then become it's an obstacle then that can get entangled with things. And so really, even a camera can add a level of complexity to a dive, not just another stage regulator. Rebreathers. So part of my background is that I was a full-time mechanic, and working on different makes and models of cars, and that allowed me to get a really good idea of how everything works. Some of my friends just worked on one car alone, like an Audi, but they couldn't look at a Vauxhall or a Ford or a Mercedes because it was just no idea. So for me, it's about understanding lots of different kit. So I would, and I have done since I became a rebreather diver, learned about, and this is actually a Submatics Sidemount rebreather, which later became Proteus. And that was shortly after my rebreather course. I wanted to understand, and I was asked, because I dive side mount so much, if this was okay, how it worked, how it performed. And I think it was in its prototype 2 phase or 3 phase or something. So, and then I got myself a JJ. I've got the Sentinel, and then I got an SF2, and I've got a Liberty side mount rebreather coming to me very, very shortly. So I'm looking forward to all this stuff because it really excites me to understand about my abilities and the equipment's abilities, the machine. And when you put it all together, your stages and your side mounts and your rebreathers on your back and your torches and everything else that you've got going on, it's nice to know that you can put it together in a nice, compact, usable piece of kit that you can use at 100 meters, you know, or further into a cave at full penetration. So here's the tickler. Can anyone be an explorer? Yes and no. Yes and no. And the correct mindset is very important. We all have an aptitude for it, but whether we use that that function correctly to make those decisions and be calm in the process, they're all fundamental things. But even researching the project in the first place is very crucial to it going well. Making sure that you're not standing on people's feet anywhere as well, who may have done some exploring around that area in the past. Planning the dives, again, you don't know what you don't know, so you really have to make sure that you plan things to an extreme, because you just need to know that you're safe. You want to come back home, yeah? Whilst you're in that team, you can't just rely on your team members. You're all doing something that is potentially out of your depth maybe, or you're heading towards it, but you can only trust yourself. If you rely on somebody else, that's a very last minute backup. You really should be confident and skillful in yourself, and that's very important. Never rush to get into something, because it's not going away. It'll be there next time. If you can call a dive for that purpose, to sort something else out, you can always go back to it. Money is never saves a life. Education. So clearly, to get to a level that you are sure of yourself, sure of your equipment, and you understand how to use it in any situation at any time, and get yourself out of a difficult situation, just keep training. Find a zone that you're comfortable in. When you're moving on to the next level, it's quite a physical thing. You put one foot out, you lay it down, you test it, see if it's good, and make the move when you're happy. If you're not, you can always step back. One of the places that I mentioned earlier is Lanny's place, cave camp. I've been going, like I said, for the last 5 years, I think it is, and it's one of the coolest places to go. It's the coolest outfits, as long as you like dogs, because they have lots of dogs. I love dogs. I love dags. But you've got cenotes all over the place. You've got facilities here, and they're just wonderful. But it's a great place to train. You've got the comfort of the day. You've got the clarity of the water. You have the warmth of the water and warmth in the days. It just makes everything very enjoyable. Once you've found that happy place, then you're in a zone. You're in a zone that's comfortable. It doesn't phase you. You haven't got the newness of an environment, of a different environment to affect you. You are just there in your zone, in a new place, not riddled with like adrenaline or anything like that. This is just, you're switched on. You've got your kit. You go back to personal awareness. Your mind is in the right place. You're focused on what you're doing. You're not overly focused. Just got everything in mind that you're doing, and as well as your teammates, you know who your teammates are, and you know where you are in the surroundings. And then while you're swimming along, you're kind of thinking of these things like, what if this happens? Can I get to it? I'm just assuming that the light cable is not going to affect me reaching to my valve to correct the problem. Is something going to obstruct something on my kit? Because we can't physically see it in the water, we are just hoping that we put things on correctly when we kit it up. So even just kit wise, I do this whole thing in my head, and as I'm swimming along, I'm checking to make sure everything was still accessible that I thought should be, and then I'm checking my teammates and I'm thinking, is any of their kit all that accessible? Is there going to be a problem with anything? What happens? Am I in a good position here to sort stuff out? Just constantly thinking of things all the time. But at the same time, going away, it's only one picture I've got of a glacier. This was one impacting place, going from underwater to on land. But actually diving in places like this glacier was fantastic in Iceland. And I'd love to be able to dive a glacier or an iceberg. But I also recognise there's risks involved in those as well, which is totally outside of what we normally have for doing, say, for example, a cave dive. And talking about different environments, this is France. So in the Lot region, it's a Sidemount cave, and it's beautiful, it's stunning, but it's different. Caves in Mexico are very different to Mexico, are very different to Spanish caves, are very different to this cave in Songhong in Thailand, or this one in France. Sorry, France. This is north of Spain near Santander, which is Pozo. And one of the caves I teach in Spain very often is Cueva del Agua. It's got stunning topography, very similar to Mexico in a way, but not very well decorated, but still crystal clear and 30 degrees in the water all year round. Florida. This is Little River, I believe. Thanks to Jill for this one. She took this photo while we were out there doing a raid cave crossover. And then we've got Mexico. I think this was phenomenon cenote. This one was taken by Ellen. This one was one exploration I did in Mexico. This was in the Ixtlan system, I believe. Just coming back, surveying some line that we'd put down. This was a cenote we were just checking out, and which apparently had been checked out by somebody else once before, but nobody knew. So it was just an idea. Projects therefore thrive on good research, planning, communication, and teamwork, both on the surface and below. Lots of things can go wrong, and it's about how you plan for things. Bunch of guys that dive in the mines quite a lot in North Wales. I've actually got something I've got to go back and do, and this was basically on the understanding as far as planning goes, where when we plan to do a bit of a dive on something that's not been dived before, and then you find out somebody's laid some line in there, this is one of those occasions. Prior research. Visiting a totally new dive site to somebody is wonderful. It's a kind of personal goal of exploration in a way, but it's not exploring. There's a lot of stuff I hype at the moment about people calling themselves explorers, but they're really just kind of exploring something new for themselves, which is very nice. And it goes everywhere towards being honest about ourselves and understanding that as adventurers that we are, because we're all adventurers, getting out there and doing some diving in new places, and then going out and finding those new places. But as you get less phased by new environments, it allows you to progress to new ones again without the adrenaline rush, because adrenaline just makes mistakes. People are idiots under that. Just get dialed in, switched on, and do what you're meant to do. I've been fortunate to in this community of ours, meet some very, very, very reputable people who've done lots of explorations. And it's often confused that because I know them that I might be one myself. I don't think I am a cave explorer or an explorer. I'd like to be, but I'd like to just honest. And people do get carried away with themselves and think that you're a lot more than you are. I prefer to just be a diver. I know I'm a teacher. I know I do a lot of stuff, but I'm just a diver, and that's as honest as I want to be. But God, I would like to get out and do half the stuff that Jill does, for example. I'd love to get out and have a look at these other wrecks that haven't been found yet in Newfoundland. Currently, we've got the PLM 27, we've got the Saganaga, we've got the Rose Castle, and oh God, I can't remember the last one now. Forgotten it. And yeah, they are absolutely stunning wrecks, really stunning. But if I can get out and dive those really deeper ones, that would be very nice. Oh, and the cave. The Bell Island mine over there that's a huge place to go dive. I did put some line down there with Jill once, which is great. My buddy in that picture before was Rene, and we dived that one and put some line down. But the whole place is already, they have a map of exactly where everything is. Putting the line down was quite easy. Just a couple of pictures of one Ellen took here of me on the wreck. I actually can't remember which one it was. And the icebergs, well, the icebergs will never be seen again. They come, they go, and they're gone. So I think Rennie and I, we actually called one iceberg a name. We got that allocation to do that, which is all very nice, but it wasn't there the following year, so clearly. Just some more pictures of that Jill took from a trip we did. I think she actually had an explorer's flag out that day. Not really sure what this was about, but I think it was a big a sign to the haters. And these are very well-known people as well. So Stratis, he's just releasing a book on close calls. So this is all about divers that make or have made and can tell the tale about problems that they've had and managed to resolve in some way, shape or form, because they're still here to write and tell the tale. So I wrote a piece for Stratis on this one, along with a lot of my friends in the diving community. They're all in this as well. Gareth Locke, he published his over a year ago now, and it's called Under Pressure, and he's also got quite a lot of people writing about those close calls, and more to the understanding about how the mind works in situations. And I've spoken to Garry that, you know, we can still make the same mistakes after we've just talked about them on land. So can you imagine what we do underwater? We still are capable, very capable of making those mistakes. So it's worth understanding when you want to get into these realms of exploration, whether it be just for yourself or whether it be for a group that is bona fide and set up and looked at everything that a project needs, research and the planning that's gone into it. And that mindset applies all the time. In terms of what I'm going to be doing next, if it wasn't for this coronavirus, I should be here, which is a mine out in North Wales. And that does require a little bit of exploration going on there. And hopefully we don't get to find out that somebody's already been in and put some line in and didn't tell anybody. And one thing I'm really looking forward to is the Phoenician wrecks in Gozo. They're quite a big task, and a wonderful team that are working on this project at the moment and have been for the last 5-6 years now, I think it is. Riddled with problems with weather and so on. It's off the coast of Gozo, 110 meters deep, and a stunning wreck that sank probably 2,700 years ago. So I've been asked to be on the team. I was asked last year, but I was busy. it was really bad of me to say I couldn't, but I had flights and work and everything else booked in. I couldn't really get around it. So, but this year, let's see how this coronavirus shapes up and how we're allowed to move around, and hopefully I'll be able to get on that. And if I ever get the chance to dive this, that will also be stunning. Obviously, I can get on the Britannic probably next year. I just need a lot of money to go and do it, or Lusitania, and know people and have talked to them. But the Mars project was something that always excited me. It's a 500-odd-year-old wreck that you can see the photogrammetry done. I think this was done by Thomas Strakur and from Poland, and he stitched all these photogrammetry images together, and so you can see what we can see there. So I think I've got these ones right, but I took them out of my little nest of pictures of what excites me about old wrecks. I'd just like to say thank you to Ellen, Jason Brown, Adam Hanlon, Apex and Jill Hyneth, Mark Vars, Tom St. George, Dean Martin and Thomas Stakur, and the Heritage Malta group who took the pictures of those deep wrecks. I think it was Dave Gratian, or it could have been Sean McKelly. And for some reason his name spelled wrong, so apologies, Sean McKelly. I will buy you a beer for that one. Okay, so that brings you to the end of that. If you've got any questions, Karen,
Garry, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. Thank you. Yeah, we have had a couple of questions come in from Sonia in Cape Town. Hi, Garry. Have you managed to control your chamber diving equalizing? That came in earlier. In Cape Town, they take us to 50 meters in the chamber, and I too have the problem of equalizing quick enough. Had to slam the inside with a hammer a few times to slow them down. Very scary when you're not in control.
So, I think the reception was a little bit, it went in and out then, phased in and out. No, I've not been able to sort out that. I don't think I would like to. We went, in the chamber, we went down at a speed of 3 meters a minute. And that is quite slow. But the impact it had on my ears was terrible because there's no water pressure on the outside. So when I'm actually doing an equalizer, I'm not pressing against water pressure, I'm pressing against air. So as a result, it doesn't really do a good job with equalizing. You need water pressure on the other side to make it a more positive equalization technique. So I don't really want to do that one again. So I'm just going to have to read what you said because I couldn't hear what you wrote. It just went out of phase. In Cape Town, they take us to 50 meters in the chamber and actually have a problem of equalizing quickly enough. I had to slam the inside with a hammer a few times to get them slowed down. Yeah, very scary when you're not in control. Yes, I was scared. I really thought I was going to do my ears in. And the guy said, you know, every time, don't worry, we will slow it down. We're going at a very slow pace. Anybody wants to call it, just call it. Just tell us to slow down. And you know, the funny thing is, you don't want to be the one to tell everyone, sorry, guys, we've got to stop. And that's wrong. That is really wrong. The number of times I've not done something because I was frightened of letting the team down. I was frightened of somebody pointing a finger at me and saying, oh, you caused this to stop, and we were all enjoying ourselves. You know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being true to yourself. You know, nobody gives a shit about you, so you have to. So don't let somebody or a group or a team put you down. You have to. You're in control of your own destiny. Don't let somebody else.
Thank you. All right, from Hein. Very interested in the iceberg dives. Share some of your experiences with that.
Oh, well, I'm just up for words for a second there. Those dives were awesome. I remember approaching the iceberg, and it was the light that came off the fringing, the light fringing around the edge of the iceberg would just produced the most awesome colours that you could ever imagine. You can't even capture on the photograph. It's so weird. And then when you get underwater, they're alive. Right? Those icebergs are living, breathing things. Right? They've travelled halfway across the Atlantic from Greenland, and then you're in the water and you hear all the fizzing and the cracking, and all of a sudden the noise sounds like turning a bass box up on full blast and putting it against your chest, and you just go, wow, what was that? And you think it's just about to turn. Or maybe, you know, they have the term where you call carving, where a side of the iceberg can shear off, and it's called carving, and it lands in the water. But yeah, you kind of wonder whether that's happened. But there's a whole lot of risk assessment issues to deal with icebergs. But you kind of, if you're a good diver, confident, there is every reason why you can go on one of those tours for an iceberg. But just remember, you never go out, go down.
All right, then Crystal obviously messaged during your talk. She was saying Iceland less than 3, I'm assuming 3 degrees. And then Hein, any future exploration projects?
Yeah, so hopefully joining the project team for Malta, Heritage Malta, that would be awesome. I am on it, but I never count my chickens until they've hatched, so I'll always wait. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting on that, and also the mine, the Rhywbach mine in North Wales. That does look like a stunning place. It's got a little bit of history about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going to do that one. Just so, like I said, I don't find some line in there already.
Cough. Cough. Oh man, shipwrecks. Cough.
Yes. Do you have some there? One or two. One or two.
Right then, Petri from Johannesburg, Under Pressure. Gareth Locke's book is well worth reading. It's absolutely well worth reading. And remember that Gareth's going to be speaking to us next week. Definitely a presentation I'm excited about. Ellie's smiling about cave. I agree with you. Best thing ever. Candy, thanks so much. Excellent talk.
Yeah, Ellis is from Indonesia and looking to do some cave training out there.
Nice. Hi. Reasons, in your opinion, to switch from open circuit to rebreather?
There's lots of advantages and disadvantages as well. I think if you've got an element of OCD, it works even better because you do have to be not clinical, but you do have to be quite regimented in the way you go about looking after it, because it's going to keep you alive. And understanding the concepts of a rebreather is actually quite easy. And so all you've got to do is keep taking bits, put them together again, and you can do that way before a dive, and you've only got to change your scrummer out and fill tanks up just before. It's much more cost effective to do good deep dives, really. Even more cost effective if they're very deep dives all the time, because you don't want to be doing those on open circuit. They're very expensive. That dive or numerous dives to 105 meters on open circuit is horrendously expensive. But if you're doing constant 50, 60, even 40, and you know what? If you're on a nice easy rebreather at 30 meters and you do a lot of that, that's a nice lot of diving. Would you gain anything better from doing that or an open circuit? Well, open circuit was cheaper really for 30 meter diving. So there's not really much of a gain from it. But if you were doing 50, 60, 70 meter dives and 30s, you'd take your rebreather, I'm sure, just because you're used to it. You get a nice warmer breath because you're constantly recirculating your own breath as it goes around the loop. So as it goes around the loop, the canister scrubber, it takes out the CO2 out of the gas that's in there. So you've just expelled it. And then sensors recognize how much is left that it needs to replenish with oxygen. So that's why we only need small O2 cells. And the diluent cell is diluent cylinder is only really just to replenish the gas as you go deeper. That's all, just to fill up the space, just to make the volume the right volume. Otherwise, it just all as you go deeper. So you don't want that. But yeah, very easy to dive. They're lovely. Can be some are heavier than others, so I'm going for the lighter weight ones. And yeah, they're really nice to dive. Just it's like everything, a set of skills. Learn the skills, dive it, practice the skills, and off you go. You're gonna have a lot of time in the water because they do give you a lot of time in the water.
Okay, I'm starting to jump a little bit. There's a lot of thank yous coming in, but we're running low on time. Garry Boland, I don't know how to say it. What do you reckon is your best location? I reckon Bell Island must be up there. Wrecks and mines.
What is my best location? It depends what I want to do. So the wonderful thing about Bell Island is it's got everything I like. You've got large aquatic life. You've got huge aquatic life, like your whales. Humpback whales, they migrate past there quite a lot, so you've got a lot of transient stuff. You've got the Bell Island mine, and you've got all of the wrecks. Wow. What else? What else do you want? Wrecks? Icebergs as well. and so you could go. So I went there for a week, and in a week I saw all of that at the same time in the week, and that was totally unbelievable. So when you go somewhere for a trip, a holiday, and you get all those features at the same time, that's really, really cool. But we're limited for dive time. But I think some of the best caves in the world are undoubtedly in Mexico. But then, you know, fish life. I mean, I saw 70 whale sharks in North Mexico, and that was unbelievable. That was unbelievable. I would like to go to the Sea of Cortez. I've never been there yet. Thailand was awesome for fish life, aquatic life. Yeah, there's lots of stuff everywhere. People often say to me, "What's your best dive ever?" Just getting in the water is actually really nice, especially right now.
Especially right now. Right, from Amanda down in Sedona Bay. Any plans to visit South Africa anytime soon? This is a serious question.
Seriously. Well, Heinrich and you, yes, I need to get over there, and we are very much in talks about this, so I can't wait to come over. Yes.
Cool. Crystal, do you prefer diving cold or warm water?
I'm not bothered. I am oddly not bothered. In fact, when I first started diving, all of my colleagues, friends in the club, they always went to the Red Sea. And I thought, I'm not going to go to the Red Sea, because if I go, come back, I'm going to end up like them, who only dive when they go to the Red Sea, or if the sun's out and it's at 20 degrees in a quarry. I didn't want to be that diver. So I didn't go to the Red Sea for many years, 10 years. And then eventually I did go, and it was lovely. And but I remained that cold water diver that likes warm water as well.
Then there's a couple of apologies. Hope you can visit Indonesia in Button Cave.
Yes.
And then Brock again. Hi Gary, great talk. What are your thoughts on SCR? Is SCR a reasonable step between open circuit and CCR, or unnecessary?
I semi-closed. Yeah, I've dived semi-closed rebreathers, and it didn't do a lot for me. I much prefer a full closed rebreather. It does what I want it to do, which is not make any bubbles, and because you still hear bubbles on a semi-closed, and it's rather annoying. When you don't want them, you don't want them. If you accept that you got bubbles because you're an open circuit, that's fine. But I don't see advantage other than for that sort of semi-recreational, technical sort of more recreational, really. I think it's a good one for your 20-meter, 30-meter diving. Yeah. But if you're going to go full CCR, go full CCR.
Excellent. Okay, last question, or second last question. Thanks for the talk. What has been your most challenging dive?
Oh, yes. I had to think about this, because I had to. So I wrote a couple of pieces for the two books. So I'm not going to tell you about those. I'll let you read them. I think one of the most challenging dives was one that got me quite unnerved, and in the middle of that, kind of made me switched on at the same time. I did write about this actually on Facebook when it happened, or just after it happened. I lost the camera. I lost the camera in a cenote. Right, a cenote that is a fairly 56 meters to the outer rim edges of the cenote, and at 30 meters-ish is a halocline that is about 3 meters deep. So unknowingly to me, I'd lost this camera. It's quite an expensive camera, and it wasn't mine. So, and I'd been using it for nearly 2 weeks prior to that, and noticed and made a lot of notes that every time that it was in the water with me, that it floated until I took the neoprene cover off the dome, and it was absolutely fine. But the one thing that changed was the environment, and that was the cenote that we were about to dive in had a sulfur layer in it. And that sulfur layer seemed to, I don't know whether it's with the runoff from the previous storm that we had, whether it mixed it all up a little bit. But I think it's there's a name given to it, and it's like what we test in batteries for the acidic layer, or for the acidic content of a battery. There's a word, and it's hydro something. I can't think of it right now. I think it changed, and as it changed that density of the water, what it did then was it allowed the neoprene or anything to become heavier and allow it to something to sink. And I think that because of that, when that happened, it made the camera just drop down. And it dropped down when I wasn't watching it, so I didn't know where it was. And then it was a case of, well, how am I going to find this now? So Gareth Locke was actually with me that day, and he can recount that. And we had a laugh about that afterwards. There was a few people, and they all tried to help out to try and find it. I think Lanny was there as well. And we didn't find it first time round. It took me 9 hours over several dives to find it. Because you could look down, visibility wasn't wonderful that day because of the runoff from the storm, but the halocline prevented you to see an area below it. So the halocline, which is somebody kindly recites it there, it's hydrogen sulfide. That wasn't the issue. It was the hydro something of a battery that we needed to find out. That hydrogen sulfide layer is just, it's like looking through milk. You can't see through it. I do remember when I did find it that I was using my arm in a motion like this, like I would do in a lost diver situation, and I hit it thinking it was a tree branch. And I remember when I hit it again, I kind of thought, I shouldn't really, I don't reckon, remember there being a tree branch around here. So I kind of grabbed it, and then I looked at it, and there's a big Z on the front, and I looked at it and I thought, that's not my camera. It can't be my camera. I've been in the water for 9 hours and I have not found this camera. I can't be that lucky to have found it. But all the time when it was going through my head was thinking about what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And switching between that sort of panic and go back to what you know. Go back to unlearning what you learned in how to do rescue and how to do search techniques, and don't deviate from it, because you deviate when you think you've done something because you didn't do it correctly. It's hard to go back and think, oh, did I really do it wrong? No, I really did it right. But actually you did it wrong, so you might as well have not done it. So you really have to be absolutely fixed, focused and conscientious about your skill. Don't deviate from it. Don't even let your mind wander, because the moment it wanders, it plays tricks with you. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you get out of your depth a little bit. Wrong gases are a common cause for that one. I'm not saying what gas I was on. It wasn't a great one, to be honest. But I did become very focused, and it was actually wrong of me to become over focused with that. And I think I've learned not to do that again.
Judging by the amount of comments coming in about you losing cameras, I sincerely hope so. Clearly you have a bit of a history there.
I only lost one camera. Oh no, I didn't. I actually lost the GoPro. It fell off me when we jumped in the water. Yeah, that was thing, but that was at least mine. So yeah, and somebody actually found it.
You're lucky. All right, Garry,
Yeah.
I'm going to call it there. There are still a couple of questions. Guys, if you're really wanting to ask questions, you're welcome to email Garry if you've got his email address, or email through to me, and I'll make sure that Garry gets the question and he can respond to you from there. Garry,
Sure.
thank
No
you
problem.
so much for your time once again. And
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your talk. Just a
Thank
quick
you, Garry.
note, everyone, remember Garry will talk next week. And then please remember the dive centers and the dive clubs. I'm very happy to make the recording available for you. Just please drop me an email. Even if you've asked me, I have so many people I have to remember that I'm going to forget. So please drop me an email. I see there's at least 15 people that I've let in, and I suspect that it might be from the UK with the wrong time zones again. We seem to have a constant problem with that. So guys, if you're wanting the recording, just drop me a line and I'll happily send it through to you. Guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, Karen, and thank everybody for watching this as well. That's very kind of you.
Cheers, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.